One side calls it a historic dark day, another calls it accountability, and the facts sit quietly in the middle waiting for you to decide. This is Parallax Newsroom. Anthony Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment during a Republican-led Senate COVID-19 hearing, prompting calls for a contempt of Congress vote. MSNBC framed the proceedings as a political attack, with host Lawrence O'Donnell calling it one of the darkest days in Senate history. The Associated Press kept its coverage strictly procedural, noting that Fauci invoked his constitutional right at the GOP-led hearing without characterizing the lawmakers' motives. The Guardian took a different angle entirely, focusing on Fauci's diaries and his criticism of a News Corp journalist's nonsense investigation rather than the hearing itself. The left emphasizes institutional decay and Republican overreach. The center sticks to the procedural facts of the constitutional invocation, and the right-adjacent coverage pivots to discrediting prior investigations into Fauci's pandemic record. What is left out across the spectrum is the substantive content of the senator's questions that Fauci declined to answer, leaving viewers unable to weigh whether his silence was legally prudent or evasive. The Senate Judiciary Committee postponed its vote on Todd Blanche's nomination for Attorney General due to disagreements with Republican senators. MSNBC framed the delay as self-sabotage, reporting that Trump gets in his own way as his Attorney General pick stalls. NPR focused on the legislative mechanics, noting that key Republicans are withholding support and forcing the panel to delay. The Hill characterized the situation as a canceled vote amid direct GOP opposition, highlighting the internal fracture within the president's own party. The left frames this as Trump's personal managerial failure. The center reports it as a routine legislative postponement, and the right-adjacent coverage highlights the institutional friction. What none of these accounts provide is the specific policy or personnel objections raised by the dissenting Republican senators, which means the audience cannot evaluate whether the holdup reflects a substantive ideological dispute or mere procedural grandstanding. The U.S. military launched airstrikes in Iran in retaliation for attacks on American troops. NPR described the action as a resumption of strikes, framing it within an ongoing cycle of retaliation for troop attacks. The Hill offered a direct factual account, reporting that the military launched strikes in retaliation for attacks on a U.S. base in Jordan. Democracy Now! Focused on the human and moral cost, highlighting Trump's remarks about images of a bombed Iran school. The center emphasizes the strategic justification tied to the Jordan base. The left questions the escalating trajectory of the conflict, and the far left highlights civilian casualties and presidential indifference to them. What is largely missing from the mainstream coverage is the scale of the Iranian response or the specific intelligence that linked the targeted sites to the original troop attacks, leaving viewers without a clear picture of whether the strikes were proportionate or escalatory. A poll indicates a growing number of Democrats and Americans are identifying with or being attracted to democratic socialism. CNN reported the findings straightforwardly, noting that a third of Democrats now identify as democratic socialists according to its own polling data. With no distinct center outlet highlighted, the framing gap here runs between the left and the right. Fox News took the poll as a starting point for analysis, exploring why many Americans are attracted to the Democratic Socialists of America and framing the trend as a warning sign about the party's direction. CNN presents the data as a neutral demographic shift within the Democratic base, while Fox treats it as an ideological alarm requiring explanation and scrutiny. What neither outlet fully explores is whether the respondents actually understand the policy distinctions of democratic socialism, or are simply expressing broader dissatisfaction with the current economic system under that label. Across all four stories, the pattern holds. The left moralizes, the center proceduralizes, and the right scandalizes, leaving you to triangulate the truth. Subscribe for the framing gap.